Republican Senator Jeff Flake believes the GOP is no longer conservative. In his new book, Conscience of a Conservative, the Arizona senator writes, quote, "Never has a party so quickly or easily abandoned its core principles as my party did in the course of the 2016 campaign. We lurched like a tranquilized elephant from a broad consensus on economic philosophy and free trade to an incoherent and often untrue mash of back-of-the-envelope populist slogans." Senator Flake is with us now. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Let me read from the New York Times this morning. A seemingly endless sequence of disappointments and blunders have rattled Mr. Trump's volatile governing coalition, like Mr. Trump's attacks on Attorney General Sessions, the vulgar tirade by his communications chief, and the collapse of a conservative-backed health care legislation. So what's happened? Why is this happening?
Well, you know, being a conservative doesn't just mean that you adhere to conservative policy, limited government, economic freedom, individual responsibility. It means you're conservative in comportment as well, your demeanor. That you know, in foreign policy, a conservative is nothing if he's not sober and measured. And that matters in the White House. It matters in Congress as well. And I think we've lost that.
You're right. Erratic behavior, unmoored from principle, is the opposite of conservatism.
That's right. You know, during the Nixon era, he had what was called the madman theory. He wanted our adversaries to think that he was a little off kilter. And that might provide some strategic advantage. But there has to be some underlying strategy beneath that. And I don't sense that we have that now. And if you just have, you know, erratic behavior unmoored from principle, that's not a good combination.
Is Donald Trump a Republican?
Yes, he's a Republican.
He won
as a Republican.
From your description, you're saying his behavior does not match with the principles of the Republican Party that you carry.
I do think that he has, some things that he has done have been conservative. I think he appointed a great Supreme Court justice. Regulatory policy that he has embraced is conservative. His instincts on tax policy, I think, are conservative. But some things are profoundly unconservative. The protectionist attitude, our attitude toward free trade, discounting free trade agreements, trying to get out of multinational free trade agreements, the isolationism, that's not conservative.
You mean America first.
Exactly. We need desperately to play a game of addition and not subtraction. And you know, I think this campaign, the 2016 campaign, was all about drilling down on a base and not adding to numbers.
Let's talk about this book. You kept it a secret from your staff while you were writing it. Why?
Well, this was tough to write. I mean, you never want to, you know, particularly in an election year, for me, or election period, I'm not next year. You never want to upset the apple cart or talk about unpleasant things. And so it was difficult to write. I didn't want to be talked out of it, though. This is too important. I think we have a crisis of principle, and we need to get back to what conservative really means. And I think that's a combination for the future. So I did keep it quiet just till a couple of weeks ago. But now I hope everyone reads it. I hope people in the White House and certainly my colleagues as well.
Do you expect to have the support of President Trump in your re-election bid?
You know, that's up to him. Obviously, there are only 52 senators. We have a small majority. But I think we've reached about the limits of what we can do just with our small majority. We've got to start reaching across the aisle. And what bothers me, I think, most is that the big problems that we have to deal with, whether it's foreign policy issues or domestic problems like our looming debt and deficit, $20 trillion in debt, we'll be soon adding, again, $1 trillion a year in deficit to that debt. You can only do that if both parties sit down and share the risk. And that's not going to happen when you refer to the other party as my enemies or losers or clowns. You can't sit down together.
If, in fact, the president had tried to negotiate in terms of infrastructure and then moved to health care, would he have had a better opportunity of fashioning a health care bill that would have repaired Obamacare rather than repealing it?
I do think so. I think we should have started with something else. Keep in mind, I mean, I'm from Arizona. It's ground zero for the failure of the exchange.
Yes.
We have people paying exorbitant premiums. 200,000 Arizonans will wake up today with no health care. Most of them used to have it, but it's gone now because premiums are too high and they can't buy it on the exchange. So we desperately need reforms there.
The president has talked and tweeted recently about changing the voting rules, essentially
Right.
doing away with the filibuster. Does that have prospects of happening?
No, and it shouldn't. That would be a big mistake. We are at our best in the Senate when we work across the aisle. I think Obamacare, many of the problems that it has, because it was pushed through by one party. By the same token, we've found it difficult as one party to repeal it.
Right.
And so I don't want to lurch back and forth every couple of years from one extreme to another. The Senate, the genius of the Senate is that, you know, it's a saucer that cools the milk, as George Washington said at one point. Those rules are there for a reason. They're good. They force us to work across the aisle. They invite us to work across the aisle, and we're better when we do that.
Your dedication is to that girl I met on a faraway beach so long ago. I'm assuming that is your wife, Cheryl.
In the green room.
She's
in the green room.
that is Cheryl. I hope people realize that.
There she is.
We met on the beach on the North Shore in Hawaii. BYU has a campus there, the first day of school.
Thank you for coming, Senator.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Senator.